This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world, with your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, I'm bringing you back a returning guest. He was back on the show in February 20th of this year, 2018. We're talking no other than Sigma Labs, Inc. They trade on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol SGLB. And with us today to talk about his company is the CEO, John Rice. John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Everett. It's nice to be with you again.
You know, give my listeners a little bit about statement of who you guys are and how you make your money.
Well, Sigma Labs is a technology commercialization company that is expert in making in-process quality assurance equipment and software for additive or 3D metal manufacturing machines. And our product is important to our market because when you make a product with 3D metal manufacturing machines, you are building a giant sculpture.
Right.
And in order to know whether you have built a good sculpture, you really need excellent in-process quality equipment to tell you while you're making it whether it is still a good part, and that's what we do.
How big is that space? Because, you know, other than talking to you, I've never heard anybody else talk about this market space.
Well, it's a fascinating market. As you know, the 3D manufacturing of all kinds of parts and all types of materials is really substantial. It's well over $10 billion annually and growing, expected to be double that by 2022, but according to Wohlers. The metal segment, which is where we are, is for the high-tech players like Honeywell and GE and Boeing, and a number of companies coming up with important parts like people making new joints for humans and so forth. So in a lot of niches, it's a very rapidly growing market. We think, based on the leading trade magazine, that it's still relatively small at something over $800 million in annual international sales. But what's interesting is that the potential of it in the eyes of the big players in the marketplace, like GE, is so substantial. GE went out and spent over $1.4 billion in the past 24 months buying companies that make these machines. And we think they did that so that they could secure themselves a source of supply for all of the machines that they think they need to buy. So the future appears to be quite fast-growing and quite bright.
You know, I was looking at one of your press releases recently. You guys did a closing offering of $2.4 million with Dawson James Security. What is that going to do for the company?
Well, that essentially allows us to complete our commercialization into the marketplace. Our product, is a little bit, I feel as if we're sometimes like the first company that invented the human pacemaker for the human heart. Everybody thinks, man, that is a terrific idea. Why don't you put it in him?
You're right.
Or her, not me.
That's true.
So it is a battle because the people with whom we're dealing with are very substantial, high reputation, high quality companies, and the process they go through before agreeing to insert our product in the middle of or the heart of their manufacturing process is exasperatingly long. But it has to be done, and they're right to do it that way. You know, they've got to be right, and we're confident that we have the answer for them. So it requires patience and financing on our part, and we have both.
You know, last time, like I said, you were on the show back in February 20th. I really wanted you to bring me an update on your product. And a couple questions I have for you. You know, you guys have a software product. Do you guys is it a one-time sell, or do you lease that out and get an ongoing commission?
It's the latter. Essentially, it's available, like many software products, it's available on a subscription basis, so that there's an upfront charge when we install. For some people need hardware, some people have the hardware. some of our hardware is essential, a server unit for data processing. So we charge this cash up front, and then there's a subscription fee going onward with annual maintenance. And also we have a number of modules which will accompany the existing product as we go into the future, So yes, it's a revenue stream, not a revenue event.
My guest today is John Rice. He is the CEO of Sigma Labs, Inc. They trade on the NASDAQ, ticker symbol SGLB. Very undervalued, I feel, here at 90 cents a share. Recently, you had a press release, I believe around May 2nd. You guys are starting to do some business development in Europe. What does that mean to the company, and what's that timeline?
We think that's quite important. We now have a German national based in Germany working with us and selling for us. He was here in training the week before last. He's just a terrific, experienced fellow. He's got a lot of relevant experience in the industry, having worked with some of the companies we are targeting to sell our product to on an original manufacturing basis. And he left here pumped. He said, I will get you business. So we like what we see. And Europe is, in some ways, more committed and advanced into additive metal manufacturing than the United States. So it's very important that we have our presence there. We're working with some of their most significant companies in this niche. This makes it easier for us to do. We also added a technician based in England so that we can support these installations better.
You know, in the 19th century, we used to be known as an industrial nation. We used to make things. Now that's kind of transferred over to China. With the new tariffs, what does that mean in your market space, and is there anything new in the market?
Well, it's interesting. I think the tariffs, they're being applied by us and by our adversaries in a very tactical basis, so it can affect one product but not another, even when they seem quite related. At the moment, I'm not aware of tariffs that are affecting the additive metal manufacturing space. But another way of looking at your question is where you sort of said, we don't make a lot of stuff in the United States anymore. One of the things that additive manufacturing does for us in the United States is it gives us equipment that is highly leverages technology, and therefore makes us very competitive. If you're making an additive part in China or an additive part of the United States, there's not much of an advantage, even with Chinese labor rates, because the parts are valuable and the amount of labor, most of the labor is done by the machine. So this is one of the tools that will help reflatten the globe in our favor.
Your revenue run rate, and correct me if I'm wrong, is around $400,000 a year in revenue. Are you thinking about any M&A going in the future here in 2018?
Yes, we think that first we do have to break out of this being more in the research niche for some of our customers and more in the revenue niche, and that's what our financing is driving towards, is let's finish the job and get into customer hands. And the other thing that we're looking at is acquisitions, both upstream and downstream of our product. Our product is based on connectivity. It sits in the middle of the quality system. We communicate with the design files of people who designed the products and are told the machine what the settings should be. And we need to communicate with the post-process quality control tools. And right now, post-process quality controls for this industry are either very old-fashioned or very high-tech, like a CAT scan. Some companies are spending $6 to inspect 100% of their additive manufacturing metal parts for every dollar they spent making the part. So we want to incorporate our technology with some much more efficient digital post-process technologies that will not only increase the yield of people because of our equipment, but also lower their costs of inspection.
If I was sitting at home and listening to this interview, why should I go out and buy your stock right now?
Well, the ideal reason for that is in order to make money.
That's true.
We have a product that we think is essential, not desirable merely, but essential for 3D metal manufacturing to realize its potential. Every new technology, no matter how disruptive and brilliant it is, usually needs enabling technologies to be developed concurrently for them to reach their full potential. And that's what our product, PrintRite 3D, is. What we provide is the ability for these metal manufacturing machines to operate at their maximum or optimum capability, I'll say. And that's really important when quality is a problem. You've got to change that. And without in-process quality monitoring, it won't happen. And with it, we think it will.
You've been listening to John Rice. He is the CEO of Sigma Labs, Inc., that trade on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol SGLB. John, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. In closing, is there anything that we didn't get a chance to touch upon you would like to illustrate to my listeners?
Yeah, only one. We announced about a month ago something that's really exciting to us, which is we demonstrated that we can execute closed-loop control. And what that meant is that in the future, we hope within the next year, that when our technology detects that a part is going out of specification,
right,
we demonstrated that we can signal the controller to change the behavior of the laser in order to rescue that part or to bring it back into compliance before it becomes a quality problem that leads to rejection. That to us is a big deal.
That would seem like a game changer. You wouldn't want to make 10,000 parts that are defunct.
Well, and to be able to stop something from being wrong early stage where it seems to be going wrong, that's a completely new idea in quality.
I want to thank you for coming on the show, John. I wish you nothing but continued success. Hopefully you'll come back on the show in 40 or 50 days. Give us an update. What's going on with Sigma Labs?
Love to do it.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire, LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.